Now I'm going to go over my 5 biggest risers from Indianapolis as a whole. So these are 5 prospects who I didn't choose any like top prospects for this because I just, we've talked enough about them. We've spent enough time talking about David Bailey, Ruben Bain, Sonny Styles, guys like that. Like, obviously, Sonny Styles was a riser coming out of the week. He was a freak athlete, tested through the roof. So, like, he's probably risen himself into the top 10 now. But we don't need to discuss him anymore. Like, I'll kind of leave out some of the top first-round guys. This is more, I want to talk more about some guys who maybe were day 2, day 3 prospects who maybe rose into the next day or into round 1 potentially. So we'll kind of see where they've kind of landed now after a really strong NFL combine last week. So first riser for me is Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt. So this was a guy we talked about with Mike Renner last week who is just a pass catcher at the moment. So Mike Renner thinks he's a wide receiver. He still lists as a tight end. For this exercise, I'm going to keep him as a tight end and label him as tight end 1 for myself because I've been in on this dude since 2 seasons ago. Honestly, since his time at New Mexico State. This guy has been a stud athlete in college football for multiple years on end now, dominating at Vanderbilt, matching with his chemistry with Diego Pavia. So had some phenomenal chemistry with quarterback Pavia there. And this guy tested as well as DK Metcalf did, who's a receiver. If you go look at the results and the RAS score, which is the relative athletic score. So every prospect testing at the NFL Combine does something called the relative athletic score, and then they kind of post it out. The highest is a 10. So you can get to a 10, 0 out of 10. Eli Stowers was a 9.47 RAS score, which is phenomenal. So anything above an 8 and 9 is ridiculous type of athlete, and that's what you're looking for at the NFL. There's honestly like a threshold to being a stud athlete in the NFL, and you got to hit the bar. You got to at least hit the bare minimum. Stowers passes that in flying colors. Little undersized for a tight end still, a little scrawny, a little slim. However, throw him at receiver, throw him at tight end, just throw the guy the ball. That's all I want to see. Just throw him the football, let him make plays in the open field. This guy can make dudes miss. This guy can jump over dudes. This guy can catch anything you throw at him. 45-inch vertical, can jump out the gym. Look at there was that chart, that graph that he tested as well as DK Metcalf, who when Metcalf was coming through the draft, we were all like, oh my God, this guy's like Megatron. Stowers, I want to say he had finished with like 900 receiving yards at Vanderbilt this year, like a 90 PFF grade. All the metrics are there. All the numbers are there. The production's there. The only question is if he is too small to play tight end or not. He's still a tight end in the NFL's eyes, and he's still a tight end in my eyes. He's tight end 1 to me. I've said before, I have him above Kenyon Sadiq, who is the Oregon Ducks tight end, who also tested very well. Phenomenal athlete Sadiq is. I don't want to take away from his combine because he probably would be a lot of people's biggest riser from this week. Stowers impressed me more. That's my tight end 1. I just think he's the better player. I think his production's been better at the college level than Sadiq. I'm not going to be mad if he takes Sadiq over Stowers because I get it. I can see the athlete. Sadiq just ran like a 4.3 or something like that, which Stowers wasn't far off. But I just think in terms of football production and catching ability, that favors Eli Stowers over Kenyon Sadiq. But Sadiq had a phenomenal, I forget his RAS score too, but it was his exact score. But I want to say it was in the 9s as well, one of the highest tight ends. So I won't be mad if you have Sadiq tight end 1. Again, I think Stowers is better and gonna be I think he has star written over him in the NFL. I think he's gonna be the best tight end from this class. I think you should take him in the first round, but I understand if you take Sadiq above him. Both phenomenal athletes for the position, and both still have some meat on the bone in terms of overall like football development and at the tight end position. Stowers has been playing the tight end position for like 3 seasons. He was a quarterback at New Mexico State, or coming in from high school. So like, imagine what he could look like with another year of development in an NFL offense as a tight end and what all they could teach him. So I'm very high on Stowers. You probably won't find many people higher on Stowers than I am, going back to the beginning of college football season. So I'm really excited to see where he ends up. If it is a wide receiver, so be it. But either way, this guy is just a pass catcher. Put him at tight end, put him at receiver. I don't think he's the blocker that most NFL teams would want their tight ends to be, so going to have to get creative there. However, that's kind of the only question mark really left for Stowers is his blocking ability for the tight end, but otherwise, just a phenomenal pass catcher and a phenomenal athlete. One of my biggest risers from the week. Okay, moving on. So, the Miami Hurricanes offensive line got a lot of buzz after the college football playoff. We all saw how strong of a O-line it was, how stout it was. Most of it was for right tackle Francis Mauigoa, who might be a top 3 pick ultimately. He tested great. He's phenomenal, but we're not going to talk about Mauigoa. Again, we're not going to mention the top prospects in this draft because they've risen as far as they can. I don't know if Mauigoa can get any higher than top 3 pick, which is what he's projected at the Cardinals right now. So we're going to talk about the left tackle here. Mauigoa on the right side was dominant. We're going to talk about Markel Bell now, left tackle, absolute monster, just a behemoth of a offensive lineman for the Miami Hurricanes. Markel Bell, 6'9", 345 pounds out of Miami Hurricanes. He's a junior. I believe he's only 21-year-old prospect. Big behemoth, just an absolute monster, and he's super athletic for his size. Super athletic, had an 83.5 pass blocking grade according to PFF this past season, was very good in the playoffs. Very good in the championship, too. If you look back at the Indiana game, he gave up 4 pressures to Ohio State, 58 pass blocking grade to them, 58 PFF grade, 88 pass blocking grade against Indiana. No pressures to Indiana, was phenomenal in that game against a very dominant defensive line that the Hoosiers had. So, I mean, I think one of the biggest takeaways just from the playoff, Miami's playoff run, was how freaking good their offensive line was. And that starts up front with Francis Mauigoa and Markel Bell. Markel Bell made a ton of money for himself this combine, and he may enter. He's likely a day 2 pick now. Could be entering day 1, depending on how needy teams are the O-line. Now, I know the Browns need one. The Rams possibly could. Here are the measurements for this guy. So first off, again, 6'9", 345 pounds. He ran a 5.36. I don't know how many 6'9", 350 pounders could run a 5.36 40-yard dash. I don't even know if I would pass that. And I'm 5'10", 150 pounds. I would, but it would be close. Markel Bell and I would be in an absolute foot race. And that would not be good for me going up against a guy 200 pounds more than me. So that's how good of an athlete this guy is. 36 and 3/8 inch arms, huge arms, and a huge, massive wingspan, 87 and 1/8 inches wingspan. Just massive human being, just an absolute mover of bodies out there in the O-line. You could see the run game that Miami had this past year. You could see the protection for Carson Beck in the pocket. This guy's a beast. And I that's one of those where I don't know how high he'll rise in the draft. I would probably take him in round 2, but that's one of my biggest risers. Everyone was talking about Mauigoa, but I think they were almost forgetting about how good Markel Bell is, and they didn't realize it till they saw how well he tested this week. So shout out Markel Bell, left tackle for Miami, a biggest riser from the combine. Moving on. Next riser, cornerback Tacario Davis from the Washington Huskies. Now, this is a 4-year starter from college. I was super high on this guy a couple seasons ago at Arizona. This guy is 6'4", great size, tall, slender, lengthy, long arms, long legs, good strides, elite size, elite physical tools for a cornerback. However, the consistency has not always been there for Tacario Davis, and that has been his problem for a couple seasons now in college football. You look back to his 2023 season at Arizona. This was the first season I discovered him. Now, I was watching tape on Tet McMillan for Arizona, and I was watching an Arizona game because I wanted to see how good McMillan was and Fafita throwing him on offense. And then on defense, I spot this huge 6'4" corner who's just a ball hawk who's just breaking up every pass. Just 12 pass breakups in 2023 for Arizona. 85 coverage grade that season for Arizona. That was the season where I saw it pop off the screen and I was like, this guy can be a first-round corner. This is a CB1 at the next level. And then he had a rough season following up that in Arizona. His coverage grade, his PFF grade dropped from an 80 to a 50 at PFF. He was giving up a lot of yards in the secondary. I believe he went from 200 yards allowed his sophomore year, 400 allowed his junior year, and then this past year at Washington had a much better season again, improved, brought the coverage grade back up from the 50s to, I believe, a 65 coverage grade, according to PFF, which is much better. Only allowed in the 100 yards, allowed less than 100 yards, or excuse me, allowed less than 200 yards in coverage this season for Washington. The tools are still there. The athleticism's there. The speed is there. 20 career pass breakups total. So this guy is a magnet to the ball. Good ball tracking skills at the corner, at the DB position. And listen to his RAS score. Relative athletic score, he posted a 9.76. That is elite. That is one of the highest for cornerbacks that we saw in Indianapolis last week. So I'm still in on this guy because the tools, I know he's been inconsistent in his career, but I think this guy gets it. I think he understands what it takes. I'm a believer in the physical traits, and I believe in the highs that we've seen on his tape going back to Arizona more than I believe in the lows. Because when you're talking physical traits that you want at the next level to teach a guy up, train a guy up, this is it right here. Takaro Davis has it, and I think whatever NFL team gets him is gonna be salivating and be really excited to develop him in their secondary. So he's one of my biggest risers. All right, moving on. Next biggest riser, linebacker Kyle Lewis from Pittsburgh. So this is a guy that Trevor Sigma was high on. This is a guy who was a Senior Bowl standout, who tore it up down in Mobile, who just stood out amongst anybody at the Senior Bowl and was just a beast there. Kept it going this week in Indianapolis, tested well, phenomenal athlete, put up all the numbers you want to see. 8.64 relative athletic score, which is very solid. That's good enough. Again, that checks the boxes. He's not in the nines, but that's almost like a threshold box. Like, check that box. This guy can play in the NFL. I think this guy is NFL ready. I think he's going to have an immediate impact somewhere. He may ultimately be a nickel. So he may be a hybrid nickel and play some safety eventually, but this is a guy the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could use as their linebacker. So I know Trevor Sigma's high on him. I'm sure he would love that pick to his Buccaneers. Maybe not at 15 overall, but day two, I would absolutely love Kyle Lewis ending on the Buccaneers. Again, I think this guy has the tools and the traits that you're chasing at that nickel position in the NFL to be an absolute stud. All right. That's all I have on Kyle Lewis. Last player, my last biggest riser from the week, fifth riser here. And this is a wide receiver from my alma mater, who I was not expecting to test this well in Indianapolis. That is Jeff Caldwell from the Cincinnati Bearcats. This dude was a stud. I mean, this dude had one of the best combines I've ever seen as a wide receiver. And 9.99 RAS score. 9.99. That is almost broke the scale. That's the highest we saw in Indianapolis this week. Just a phenomenal athlete. 6'5". Big 6'5" stature. Huge for a receiver. That is T. Higgins size. That is the size of T. Higgins. And guess what? He ran a 4.31 40. 4.31 40 time, which was fifth. Fifth overall amongst all prospects. All players in Indianapolis, not just wide receivers, all players. 4.31 at 6'5". That is flying, man. That is absolutely flying for Jeff Caldwell. And the production was so-so for him in the season. I got to be honest. As a Bearcats fan, I was a little underwhelmed with him in the season, but now I'm almost going back and seeing what I missed on tape because the athleticism was there. Just graded in the 70s his whole career, transferred from Lindenwood, 74 PFF grade coming there, had a 70 grade this season at Cincinnati, 478 receiving yards. Again, solid production, average numbers at the level. Brendan Sorsby, I would say, ran more than most college quarterbacks did. So, they definitely would. We were more of a running team. Everyone knew that. The Cincinnati Bearcats are a running team. They like to run the ball first and foremost. So that was kind of their offense this season, get a little play action. So they weren't really throwing the ball too much. So I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't question Caldwell's production too much on why his numbers weren't great. Plus, he had a couple guys like Cyrus Allen, Joe Royer, Sorsby was also throwing the ball too. And like I said, we also got our running backs in space as pass catchers as well. So I wouldn't worry too much about the college production and just like his overall numbers as a wide receiver in the box score, because this guy is as good of an athlete as it gets as a wide receiver. And the 9.99 RAS score proves that. So I would expect him to put up better production than he ever did in college. I wouldn't worry too much about just the 400 yards. Again, I thought he was solid. Like, I always thought he was good for Cincinnati, but nothing ever showed me that he was going to test like this. So I'm almost just wondering what I missed during the season. So excited for Jeff Caldwell. Pumped to see where he ends up. I think he's truly entering. Like, he is now a top 10 wide receiver in this draft class. He definitely is for me. He might enter some people's top 5 wide receivers in the class. So very excited to see where he ends up. Again, as a Bearcat fan, I did not expect him to test this well. So super excited for Jeff. Super proud of him and the combine he just put out. I was at his podium. I did ask him a question. I want to reference that real quick. So I stood at Caldwell's podium and I asked him what his favorite memory of being a Bearcat was this season. And he said trying Skyline Chili with his teammates. So eating Skyline Chili. So shout out Jeff Caldwell if you're listening. I'm not as big of a Skyline fan as you are apparently, but I appreciate the honesty in that question. So in that answer. So all right, that is all I got on my 5 biggest risers now. We're going to go now quickly. I'm going to go over the 5 fastest 40 times. So I want to save my next segment for the end because I think that's going to be my longest segment where I kind of just go off on a rant and you guys will see what I'm talking about here. But really quickly, I want to talk about the 5 fastest 40 times because we actually just ended with number 5. And that was Jeff Caldwell, wide receiver from Cincinnati, as he posted a 4.31 40-yard dash time. So if you don't know about the 40-yard dash, and you're looking for every year, that's kind of the most popular event at the combine, where you see guys get in their track stance and their running stance, and then they blow the whistle and they sprint 40 yards as fast as they can. A good time for a wide receiver is like, I would say you want to be below 4.4. Like, that is considered fast. Anything in the 4.3s is you are flying. You are absolutely flying. And if you go below that in the 4.2s, you are in the upper echelon historical of all-time best 40s. I want to say Xavier Worthy still holds the all-time fastest, which I think is 4.21. And John Ross was second, which is 4.22. And those receivers haven't exactly had the best NFL careers. So it doesn't always translate to immediate success and stardom in the NFL. So it's almost like we talked about like checking a box. Like, you almost just have to break a certain 40. For example, Carnell Tate ran a 4.54. I'm not worried about that at all. That means nothing to me. Carnell Tate is a beast. Carnell Tate's a stud. Dude is gonna be great at the next level. I'm not worried about drafting Carnell Tate, and neither should you be. So don't freak out that he ran a 4.54 and then not draft Carnell Tate, because I think you're overthinking it. As we said, overthinking season. So number 5, that was Jeff Caldwell, wide receiver from Cincinnati.